It's good to have you here. My name's Dylan, pastor at this church, and I really believe God wants to put something in your heart today that'll bring you courage, give you life, and we love Easter. I was with my girls yesterday. They went off to a local church thing called Messy Easter. The Anglican church do this thing every year called Messy Easter, and I love that because different churches collaborating over the most important events in history, right? And so that's really powerful. And they came back from this event called Messy Easter, and they all had they were like supersized hot cross buns. How many of you know that's a gift from heaven? I mean, they're good enough as they are, but double up, now we're talking. And so they came back with these supersized hot cross buns, and then I noticed there was the side of them, and they were showing me what was going on. The side of the bun was pulled out, almost like if you're from Durban, like a bunny chow. You know what I'm talking about? When they take the best part of the thing out and then dip it on top, right? So what they got going on in the bun is, so I say to them, what's happening with the bun? I said, Dad, it's the tomb. So I'm like, okay, got it. The cross bun's the tomb. I got you. And so I say, okay, well, open it up. So they open the tomb up for me, and I take a little peek inside. And now my 7-year-old daughter, she's strong. Let's just use those words. That's helpful. She knows what she wants. And so I lean over like this, and I say, but baby, and she's like, what? I said, where's Jesus? So she puts her hands on her hips like this, and she looks at me and she says, He's risen. I'm telling you, if there is a reason to celebrate in history, it's because of what took place on Easter Sunday. If there is a reason to get up in the morning for the purpose God has called us to, for the family that He's put us with, for the community that He's entrusted to us, if there's a church that's worth celebrating, that's because of Easter Sunday. Why? Because He's risen. It's a done deal. It's going down as the greatest event in history. And my prayer today is that we would catch again the heart of Easter Sunday, that it would jump out to us, the power and the potential of this thing. And as I looked at this little tomb, I said to him, and guys, so he said, Dad, He's risen. I said, what's the power of Easter Sunday? I said, He's risen. I said, is that what it's about? They're like, yeah, that's the deal. I said, why is that powerful? Because I'm trying to help my girls see it's not just what took place, it's why it took place. You know, a lot of us understand it took place. Sometimes we battle to comprehend that it actually took place, but most of us would agree there was an event that happened and it took place. And I'm trying to get them to understand it's not just what took place, it's why it took place. And they're like, well, he raised and He's gone and the tomb's empty. I'm like, why is that powerful? And they're like, I give up, Dad, tell us. I said, because the same power, so the Bible tells me, that raised Jesus from the grave lives in you and I. I'm telling you, friends, you got to get this morning. The same power that raised Jesus from the grave, the same power that robbed the grave, the same power that broke the curse of sin over our lives, the same power that releases freedom into His people, the same power that breaks chains and does what none of us could do in our own strength, that same power is given to you and I. And I looked at my girls and they looked back at me and they're like, you for real, Dad? I'm like, I'm for real. They're like, we want that. I'm like, you got it. That's what we're going to celebrate. It's not just an event, it's what it means for us. It's not just another Sunday, it's that Sunday did something for us and in us and will do something through us if we give Him permission. And so the title of my message today is It's a Turnaround. Tap somebody and say it's a turnaround. It's no ordinary Sunday, it's a turnaround. Just like the Sharks turned it around on the screens yesterday. If you're from Joburg, welcome to Shark Country. It's a good weekend to be celebrating them, by the way. Just use it while I can. So here we go. Jesus is risen. This is a story of Easter, and it's Luke chapter 24. A little bit wordy, so stick with me. We'll get through it together. And then I got 3 points. We're going to share communion, and we're going to go out of here with a song of praise. Is that all right? Here we go. On the first day of the week, very early in the morning, a woman took the spices they had prepared, and they went to the tomb, and they found the stone was rolled away from the tomb. But when they entered, they did not find the body of Jesus. While they were wondering about this, suddenly 2 men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them. In their fright, the women bowed down with their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, why do you look for the living among the dead? I remember a few years back, God giving me this idea that we so often go looking for heaven's gold in borrowed graves. We go looking for what heaven gives in places that God will never hang out. And we wonder why He's not there. It's because He's risen. He's living a resurrected life, and we're looking for Him in spaces that are borrowed graves. And so He says, don't look for the living among the dead. He's not here, He's risen. Remember how He told you while He is still with you in Galilee, the Son of Man must be delivered over to the hand of sinners, be crucified, and on the third day be raised again. I love it how God always does what he says. If God has a word over your life, he will finish that word over your life. God always does what he says. God always builds his church. God always frees his people. God always releases his power. He always does what he said. Verse 8, then they remembered his words, and when they came back from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and the others, and it was Mary Magdalene and a whole bunch of other people. And then it says in verse 12, Peter, however, got up and ran to the tomb. You know, you got to realize you can't live out your faith through somebody else's life. You got to check it out for yourself. I mean, I understand that mom and dad taught you some values, maybe told you some great Bible stories, or we could be grateful for Sunday school teachers. But it comes down to a moment like Peter where you're like, listen, I heard something's going down, but I'm not going to stare at it from a distance. I'm going to go and check it out for myself. By the way, if you came to church today, the fact that you're sitting here, you've already started the journey. Well done. You're checking it out for yourself. You're seeing, what's this thing all about? Why is this church so loud? Why are these people so friendly? Why are the volunteers giving up their family moments to come and serve the church? Because we have the most incredible volunteers on the planet. But it's because Jesus is alive. And Peter's going, I've heard some great stories about this church, about these people, about this Jesus, but I'm going to go and check it out for myself. My prayer today is that you would see for yourself, experience for yourself, risen Jesus, resurrected life. And it says, he bent over and he saw strips of linen lying by themselves, and then he went away wondering to himself, what's just happened? Now, and here's where I want to spend some time. It's official, Jesus is not there. He's not in the tomb. That's what happened. But now we're going to jump into a story that follows the Easter story. That is why it happened. And so let's jump into the story together, and I'm going to give you some points from it. On the road to Emmaus, verse 13. Now the same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the home of God's people. It's the religious hub, if you like. It would be like what church would be like for us on a weekend. We would gather in our Jerusalem of today to celebrate the name of God and Jesus. And so Jerusalem, they're walking away from the things of God. And they were talking with each other about everything that had happened. And as they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. If you're taking notes, write this down. This is point number 1 on Easter Sunday. So close, but so far. So close, but so far. I love it how the story is told of two men, or a man and a woman, we're told, that are walking along this road. They're leaving the religious hub. They're leaving God's people, the gathering place. They're leaving community, and they're almost going on a lonely journey, some would say, to nowhere. I mean, Emmaus was a place, but it had nowhere near the hum and the buzz and the potential of what was happening back in Jerusalem. But in some ways, we've got to ask the question, were they discouraged? Were they disheartened? Had the one that had been so powerful and present in his life on earth, has he disappointed them? Is he going to come back? Is he going to do what he said? What's next? Is my business going to go where I thought it might go? Is this family moment ever going to end? Are my children ever going to return? I'm walking away from Jerusalem. I'm losing hope. And as they're walking, it says that Jesus comes up and he walks alongside them, but they don't recognize him. And what I've realized in life is sometimes when I'm asking God to do something in my life or in my heart, as I'm walking a journey, sometimes far from him. Sometimes it feels like, God, I don't know where you are in this moment or in this season or in these circumstances. And as I'm walking that journey, so often he presences himself right next to me, but I don't see him. He's so close, but yet so far. And we look for him in all these places, and yet he's standing right beside us. Sometimes it's in our spouse. Is God's voice in her or him? You know, husbands, when your wife now and again just nudges you and says, I just feel maybe, that's permission to listen. Ladies, I like Linc bunnies. You can give me one of those if you want to thank me at any time for that moment. But often it's closer than you think it is. Sometimes it's in our children. Who would have thought? Sometimes it takes a child holding an empty hot cross bun to remind me that this is an event worth celebrating. Jesus is not in the tomb. It's not worth being downcast and frustrated and regretful because there is an empty tomb. There's power. Sometimes it's closer than you think. And sometimes for us, we've been doing church for a long time and we learn to enjoy the experience of church, but we actually forget about the experience of Christ, which is actually why we do church. It's him in us. And so we come and we fill our chairs and we come past and we high-five and we coffee and we sing and we do all these things. And actually when we go home, we feel like he's far from us. Is he? I don't know. I feel like there's some of you sitting here today that, if you're really honest, it doesn't feel like God's so close. I mean, bunnies are flying and chocolates in the air and everyone's having a party, but you feel like, if you're really honest, it doesn't feel like I want to tell you, friends, he's closer than you think he is. He's closer than you think he is. And so why were they kept from recognizing them? Was it him? I don't think so. It was them. Something they were so focused on what they weren't living in. They were so focused on where they were going. They were so focused on what was playing out through their mind that they never actually recognized him in their presence. Could it be that we're so focused on that thing we've asked God to do for us, that perfect result in this or in business or in marriage or in relationships, that we don't see God standing right beside us? There was a story told, you may know it, of a man stranded on a roof in a flood. It's a classic story. And there he is, stranded on his roof in this flood. And he asks God, I need your help. Will you save me? And so while he's crying out to God, a little guy comes past in a rowing boat, screams out to him, jump on in, let's get you out of here. He's like, no, it's all good. God's got this one. I've got faith for it. The guy's like, cool, keeps rowing. A few hours later, tide's rising. The next guy comes past, this time in a motorized boat. This time it's a better option. He's like, jump inside the boat. Come on, we can get you out of here. We can help you. And the guy's like, no, honestly, it's fine. I got God. He's on my side. You know, God, no, I do. He's coming for me. It's cool. I got faith. Boat rides on. You know the story. And then the helicopter comes. I mean, it's like, buddy, you're about to get a bird's eye view of the city if you get saved right now. Helicopter says, come on, jump inside, drops down the rope. He says, all you got to do is hang on to the rope. All you got to do is hang on to the rope. And he's like, no, it's cool. Honestly, my God's got this one covered. I've got faith for it. Man drowns, ends up in heaven. He's like, God, we need to talk about that moment back there. I had faith for it. Where were you? He said, I sent you a rowboat, a motorboat, and a helicopter. And I'm telling you, friends, sometimes it's just jump in the thing that's closest to you that represents something of God. Sometimes it's a friend that's got courage for us. Sometimes it's a church that's got its doors open. Sometimes it's His Word that's just right in front of us, right next to our bed. Just jump into whatever's available because there's rescue on its way. He's closer than you think it is. Second point, and as we keep reading the story, it's awesome. Jesus says, He asks them, what are you discussing together as you walk along? It's like He doesn't force Himself on them. That's what I love about our God. He just steps alongside. He's walking. They don't even know it's Him, and He's cool with that because He's okay to go on a journey with you. You don't have to have it all worked out from day one. And He says, what are you guys chatting about? And they stood still, and their faces were downcast because their marriage wasn't what they had prayed for, and their business wasn't where they wanted it to be, and South Africa isn't in the state that everyone hoped it would be in by now. They were just a little bit frustrated. And so one of them, named Cleopas, asked him, are you the only one visiting Jerusalem that does not know the things that have taken place there? Listen to this. Jesus says, what things? Now, it's not like He didn't know what had happened. He's the reason it happened. And yet, as they talk about these things, downcast, frustrated, He says to them, and they're going, you don't understand, this went down, and they took Him out, and then He was in the grave, now He's gone. Don't you know about these things? Jesus is like, what things? Why? Because they're still living in Friday, but not Sunday. They're still living in the shame of Friday. They're still living in what went down on Friday. They're still living in what didn't happen. And Jesus is saying, that day's gone. We're living in Sunday. He almost like He looks at them and goes, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Times have changed since then. Friday's over. Sunday's come. What was in the grave is now in heaven. All right, are you okay with that? What things? Is our God. Let me tell you a little joke. Is that all right? Easter Sunday. You're going to get a marshmallow egg as you leave. That's going to be the second best part of today. But this is going to be the first, possibly. All right? So, Van der Merwe, who's a good friend to all of us here in South Africa, goes down to the ocean one day, and he gets for himself a real big bucket of crayfish, all right? Let's just hashtag it illegal. And so he comes back up the beach, And as he's coming back up the beach with this big bucket of crayfish, the parks board comes up to him. If you know the joke, just laugh, do me some favor and help me out, all right? And he comes up to him and he says, "Excuse me, sir, what's in your bucket?" Van der Merwe says, "Sorry, what are you talking about?" He says, "What's in your bucket? There's crayfish in your bucket." So Van der Merwe says, "Oh, these are not just crayfish. These are my friends." And the parks board says, "Really?" He says, "Yeah, sure. Your friends." He says, "Yeah. I come down to the ocean, whistle, all my friends come running out. Then we have a little hangout time. Then I send them off for another little swim, whistle again, friends come running back. We're just mates." By now, parks board officers like, "Okay, let's see it." So Van der Merwe tips the bucket out and off the crayfish run off into the water. And he stands all confidently and the officer looks at him and he says, "All right, call the crayfish." Van der Merwe says, "What crayfish?" You know you want to laugh. Okay, here's the thing. Here's what I want to tell you. Tap your neighbor, say, "What crayfish?" Here's what I want to leave with you today. Okay? Some of us are holding on to things we should never have picked up in the first place. And it's time to let them go. Jesus says, what things? He's let them go. Why are we still holding on? He's let it go. So on Friday, we're arriving at the cross. God, I'm not worthy. And God, I just don't qualify. And God, I haven't been to church in like 5 years. God, I don't even know why I'm here, but I'm back and I'm sorry. And I've got shame and I've got frustration and I've got resentment. I'm longing on the old days. Remember the good old days? May we never be that church that longs for the good old days. And we're standing at the cross going, God, there's all this stuff. And He's going, what stuff? I'm not sure what you're talking about, Dylan, because I dealt with your shame. I've forgotten about it. I've given you forgiveness. I've forgotten about it. I've given you better days ahead than the days you leave behind. I've forgotten about that. And I felt God say as we came out for Easter Sunday, Resurrection Sunday, don't camp at the cross. Don't camp at the cross. You know Joshua, Old Testament guy? He led God's people out of the desert into their destiny. Pretty dynamic guy. And one of the first things he got them to do was move from a place called Shittim, which speaks of acacia wood, which is a picture of the cross. He got them to move from a place called Shittim to a place called Gilgal, which means rolled away, resurrected life. Why? He needed their mindsets to change. We are not camping at the cross. It dealt with everything once and for all. We are living in resurrected life. What things? Tap your neighbor and say, what things? God's forgotten, so should we. There's freedom in this house today. Maybe you've just arrived at church. It's been a long time. Maybe you're not sure why you're even here. Maybe you've walked in because you know it's the right thing to do, but actually as you came in, you felt like inadequate. I want to tell you, friends, as you look at all that you don't have to give, God promises everything He gave. It's Sunday. You're welcome in this place, and you can belong in this house before you believe. Be yourself. What things? What crayfish? I love it how Jensen Franklin said it. He said, God could have just finished it on Friday. He could have left it there. I mean, He dealt with what was needed to be dealt with on Friday. But He didn't just save us. He liberated us. He didn't just forgive us of our sins. He set us free into our destiny. He is a resurrecting God. What things? Jesus says. As they continue to walk, they're going to tell Him all these things of which He, by this stage, it's not that He's not listening, it's that He's not concerned. It's not that God can't hear your heart's cry, it's that for Him, that is not a blockage to where He wants to lead you. And He says in verse 25, how foolish are you and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken? Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter His glory? It's not yours, it's His. And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, He explained to them what was said in the scriptures concerning Himself. As they approached the village to which they were going, listen to this, Jesus continued on as if He was going further. He will never force Himself into your life. He continued on as if He was going further. He was just taking a stroll, walking with them, talking about life. It can feel like, God's so far, but He's actually so close. And we can live in Friday when He actually wants us to enjoy the promise of Sunday. But even all those things being said, when it comes down to it, He will not force any of this onto you. And yet they say to Him, stay with us. Why? Because they'd experienced something. Stay with us because we've experienced something. And this is what's going to happen when you leave here today, by the way. I'll talk to my Thrive friends down this side of the room. When you leave this place, this atmosphere of faith, this environment of faith and excitement and expression and boldness and courage, and it's amazing, isn't it? And when you leave here, something inside of you is going to tell you that you felt something different. I mean, you know what this is. It's God working in your heart. But you're going to leave here, and it's not always going to feel the same as what it felt like here. And what they do is they invite Jesus back in. By the way, we've got to do this every single day. They say, God, it's been so good being with you. Even though they didn't know all of what it was about, please stick around. And it's like on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all those days, what we got to be doing is saying, God, there's something you've started. Please stick around. Please stick around. And so he does because he's good. And listen to what he says. He went in to stay with them. Verse 30. And when he was at the table, he's a family man. He's a family man. Christianity is not a function. It's not something we check to make a quick entry to heaven. It's family. This is who we are. And we serve a heavenly Father and a faithful Son. And the power of the Spirit lives in us, and he's having a family moment. That's what today is meant to be about. It's a family moment. And when he's sitting at the table with them, he took the bread and he gave it thanks. You know, often the greatest miracles involve bread in the stories of Jesus. And the amazing thing was every time there was more than enough. Which tells me what? There's no limited access to heaven. There is more than enough for all of us. And no matter what you feel like today where you sit, there is enough on supply, on offer for you to receive. And so he has this moment and he says, he breaks it and he begins to give them some of the bread. And then verse 31, their eyes were opened and they recognized who they were. No. They recognized what they should have been doing with their business all along. They recognized the word that they should have been speaking over their marriage, over their family. They recognized the perfect parenting tactics. No. They recognized him. They recognized him. And then he disappeared from their sight and they asked each other, were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road? And suddenly it all makes sense and opened the scriptures to us. Were not our hearts burning in us as we sat amongst hundreds celebrating the name of Jesus that Easter Sunday? Were not our hearts burning in us as that one friend that keeps telling us God's got a plan for our lives started to breathe courage? Were not our hearts burning in us? It was God at work all along. It says they jump up and they immediately return to Jerusalem. Now, just a few thoughts as I close. Worship team, you can come and join me. In the Garden of Eden, man and woman had their eyes opened and they saw themselves. And they went and hid because who they were was not enough. On the Emmaus Road, they had their eyes opened, but they don't see themselves. They see him, and it's more than enough. In the Garden of Eden, a couple fell from grace. On Emmaus Road, Jesus restores them by his grace. I want you to see, friends, when your eyes are open to only see you, you will never grow into all God has for you. But when your eyes are open, I pray by God's grace that starts to happen this morning. When your eyes are open to see him, it's more than enough. And it's more than enough in my marriage, and it's more than enough in my business, and it's more than enough in this nation, and it's more than enough in my relationship. When I look at me, I got some challenges, but when I look at him, I've got some courage. He redeems them from the curse of self. We're so focused on ourselves. And my prayer simply is this Easter, is that you would get the attention off yourself and you would put it back on him. That he would open your eyes in this moment. We're going to share communion in just a moment. And when we do, I hope you don't remember a word I said. I hope you remember your eyes being fixed on him. I hope that there is something that shifts in you as he opens up. Sometimes it's spiritual eyes. Sometimes practically we see something we've never seen. But I just pray, God, would you open up our eyes? Would you open up our eyes? And so the last point as I close is it's home time. It's home time. I really feel like God wants to say to you, the reward is in the return. The reward is in the return. They're walking away from Jerusalem. They're discouraged. He's closer than they think. He's right on board the journey. That He's right next to you in the journey you're on. He's not concerned for what you leave behind. He's focused on what lies ahead. And then he sits down with us and opens our eyes not to see ourselves, that's not important, but to see him. And you know what their response is? Oh, I love this moment. They turn around and they walk straight back to Jerusalem. It's like there's a turnaround. And sometimes we could be going through the motions, and we could be doing what we think we need to be doing, but the truth is we're walking further and further away. We just need one moment, just a little glimpse. We don't need another reason to do something new for God. We need new revelation of who God is and what he's done for us, all right? We don't need another reason to go to church, another reason to give, another reason to read. We just need a revelation of who he is. Because in that moment, as our eyes see him, I remember when it happened to me, we turn around and we walk straight back into the purpose that he put us on this earth for. It's a turnaround. Tap your neighbor and say, it's a turnaround. We love a comeback story. We love a comeback story. Let me tell you, friends, this is the greatest comeback story in history. And it didn't end with Jesus. It's now playing out in them. You see, Jesus' mission was done. He had fulfilled and finished everything. But there was something left to do for us. The same power that raised Christ from the dead lives in you and I. The same power. Oh God, you know, it's been an interesting season. It's had its moments. I was actually feeling quite excited coming in here, but God, if I'm honest, there's stuff inside of me. The same power that raised Jesus from the dead lives in you and I. I believe there's turnarounds in this room today. I don't believe it's in my words. I believe it's in his word. And my prayer is simply this. As we take communion today, would your eyes be opened to see him? Because when you see him, everything changes. And they returned to Jerusalem, the gathering place for God's people. My thoughts are they went and had a bit of a praise party because they just realized it's a done deal. No longer anything they have to do for God. It's all about what he's done for them. And they're living in resurrected life. Won't you stand with me this morning as we close together?